Hello and welcome to NEK VT Rocks. My guest today is Michelle Rossi. Michelle is here in her role as part of the Newport Promise community.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about what Promise is in Newport. Just a simple question.
I think the gist behind the idea of the Newport City Promise community is not just what we want to do with our project, but bringing a sense of caring into our community, which there seems to be a lack of these days. And a large gray cloud has been hovering over our city for quite some time for several different reasons, one of them being childcare. So our goal kind of with the Promise community, as we put our roadmap together, we've assessed through community cafes down at the Lunchbox on Thursday. We've spoken with parents in the community with small children to find out what their struggles are with daycare and how that affects them being able to be gainfully employed full-time or part-time, and how that can affect their everyday routine. Not every parent is a two-parent household, and sometimes when you have two-parent households, daycare can be flexed between the two parents. Not so much with a single-parent household. Regardless of the parent that's home, it's definitely difficult. And myself as a single parent, would consider myself one of the lucky ones. I have a fantastic childcare provider, and my daughter is not old enough yet to be home by herself, so she will remain with that provider until she is old enough to be home alone. But other people we found have been not so fortunate, having to split up their children in separate daycares because there's not enough space in the one provider that they'd like to keep their child in, or having to take a job that just really is not a job that they would prefer to be working in, but because it's a job and they need to be working, so they're forced either with daycare or with employment. But either way, it's
how does the affordable piece fit into this? Because when I hear people talking about the cost of finding daycare, it's astronomical, and wages up here are pretty low.
Wages here, actually one of the things that I had experienced personally, minimum wage in the state of Vermont is actually higher than the minimum wage in Massachusetts, which I found to be very odd. At the very least, Massachusetts is a much bigger, city or state than we are, and the number of people that occupy it is far greater, and the cost of living is far greater than what it is here. So you would think that minimum wage would be higher down there, but it's actually not. So for us here up in the kingdom, on the rare occasion that you find a job that pays more than $11, be thankful that you have it. A $10 an hour job, part-time or even full-time, single parent or double parent household, your child care, depending on the age of your children, is still going to cost you anywhere from $125 to possibly $200 a week for one child. Some daycares offer multiple child discount or a sibling discount, they may call it, and again, that also depends on the age of your child. If you have a school-age child that's only attending in the afternoon, then you may have a lesser rate per week. But if you have a child under the age of 2 and an after-school child, well, then your rate's going to vary, because the under 2 child care rate can run anywhere from $150 a week to $175 and even more just for that one child.
It makes it impossible to work.
It does. You're better off staying at home because all you're doing is working to pay the babysitter, and nobody wants to do that.
And how do you then keep a roof over your head and put food on the table?
That's a really good question, and it is absolutely a struggle in our community, and you can see it everywhere you look. That is an issue. A lot of the people that are receiving public assistance, myself having been one of those people at one time in my life, the system makes it really, really difficult to stay afloat. Not even get ahead, but just staying afloat. Right. For an average household of 3, the the Reach Up grant is roughly $580 to maybe $600 a month. Now, if you have looked at an apartment rental recently,
Right.
good luck.
Yeah.
Finding an apartment for less than what your grant is, that includes everything, is
Right.
going to be next to impossible. So for that family, they're going to lose money by going to work, which really stinks because chances are what they're making, even if they're full-time employed, is not going to be much more than what their grant is. And
Right.
it's really, like, that math is hard to swallow. People can't get by on that.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And my honest opinion is that the welfare system is set up for failure. There are those who have made it a career, and that sounds really negative when you put it that way, but that's kind of what it really amounts to in all reality. They've made it a career. There's 2 and 3 generation families that are on public assistance for whatever reason. Could be lack of employment, lack of employability, not having enough skills, not having the right mindset, not being able to afford daycare.
Just totally fried with the system because
Yep.
where is the hope at the end of that tunnel? There isn't any.
There's not, and in a perfect world, this wouldn't be an issue, but that's not the case. A change that I would actually like to see happen with the welfare system, I think it would be if a family is, or a single parent family becomes gainfully employed, when you report that you now have a job, they almost immediately cut you off at the
course.
knees, and then they wonder why you can't walk. Well, there's no transition period from the time that your assistance is cut off and the time that you receive a first
Right.
paycheck. So if you get into a job that pays bi-weekly and you've started in the middle of a pay week, well, everybody's going to get paid the next week, but you're not. So you have to wait 3 weeks to get a paycheck. So when you've reported your job on the 28th of this month, on the 1st of the next month, you don't get your grant, and you don't get a check until the 25th of that month
But your
that you're
bills
in.
have already come due,
But
so you're
yep.
already behind. Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's insane.
Yep. So you're behind the 8 ball right
Right.
from the gate.
So how is Promise going to be able to help change some of this? I mean, clearly there's going to have to be a many-pronged approach, including doing something about the welfare system, doing something about the political aspects of this. But on the ground, which is where I understand Promise is able to make a difference,
Yes.
how's Promise promising?
Our goal with the Promise
Yeah.
community is to utilize the space that is beneath the United Church on 3rd Street. It was previously used as a preschool
Right.
set up and possibly a daycare.
It was a good one,
I
right?
could be wrong. My child never went there.
Yeah.
My niece did, and my sister-in-law had really good reviews
Yeah.
of the services provided there. So that space is still there. It is unoccupied. It does still house all of those preschool fixtures, books, tables, all your basic requirements for a preschool setting classroom. And the Promise community is preschool and kindergarten readiness oriented, and making sure that the children that we are hoping to serve in our program here will be meeting all the requirements when they go into kindergarten. So being
Right.
able to provide the services that these kids will need in order to get them where they need to be. So what we would like to do is open a childcare facility, more of a community care center is what we'd like to do, with the basic premise of it to serve families in our community that are in need of childcare so that they can be gainfully employed, while we'd like to incorporate the elders of our community as well. Since we are deemed an age-friendly community, we'd like to have the
And
elders
some
come
of us
in
are old.
and have them come in and work with the smaller kids. Even if it's just an hour a day, one-on-one communication with a small child to an elder could be the world to them.
Absolutely.
And, you know, just having that connection and not being so disconnected, which is a lot of what we see around here as well. So along with serving, you know, families in our community that need to be able to work, it will also, we have a lot of different ideas, and possibly working with NECA when families go on reach up, there is a work requirement that needs to be made, and if we could have them working in the daycare facility, maybe with or without their child in that facility, it will allow them to meet their work requirement, allow them to keep their grant, and they will be fulfilling all of their job needs.
And learning skills.
And
at the
learning
same time.
skills as well. I don't know that there will be any certification or anything incorporated with that. I don't know that we fall under those guidelines or have any of those
Yet.
requirements yet. And we're not even sure that that's an option because of the ever-changing childcare guidelines and the certification of people that would be able to be in the classroom working with the
Right.
children that we intend to be serving.
Do you have a time frame? Because this is sounding wonderful.
Our Promise Community Grant, we just submitted our first draft of our roadmap for the funding that we've or will be receiving. We expect the first disbursement of $75,000 to come in December, and James Merriam from the United Church, him and his staff there have agreed to be our fiscal agent, so they will be monitoring the funds. So we just submitted our roadmap of where we intend to spend that first $75,000. So that includes the evaluation of the space, making sure that it's up to code, and being able to figure out from there the number of families that we can serve and the age groups that we can serve, finding the proper teachers or instructors, whatever the requirements are, and basically figuring out how, once this is off the ground, that we're going to be able to maintain it after the full $150,000 has been spent on this project.
How many of you are working on this?
We have anywhere from 10 to 15 people locally that
Yeah.
are part of our steering committee. We've got Julie Raboyne from the City
Yeah.
Council. We have Jean Cabmary from the Newport City Elementary School, who has been gracious enough to be able to share some of the information about the kindergarten readiness guidelines that we need to be looking at when we lay the groundwork for this project. Colleen Moore-Ortiz, who works for the Department of Health, wealth of information coming from that woman. We couldn't ask for a better leader. It just,
And she has young kids, so
She
she
does.
truly knows it from all ends.
She does. We've also got Lisa Duncan. She runs a childcare up in Derby. So we have people from different spectrums. We have Jessica Maurice from Newport City Elementary as
Yeah.
well. She runs the Encore program in the afternoon, but she also has early education background experience. She used to be a preschool teacher at the Newport Head Start. So we're pulling people from different aspects of all of the aspects that we need to have information from to be a part of this one group. I don't come prepared with any specific background other than I'm a single parent household in the city of Newport. My eldest child is already a high school graduate, and my youngest is going into 3rd grade this year.
So how is that not having a relevant background?
Well, parenting wise, yes. Having kids on opposite ends of the spectrum, you know, I can bring that to the table.
Right.
Also,
That's a lot.
I-
It's really relevant.
I also co-chaired the Newport City Parents Club last year with Rory Carr. So I spent a lot of time within the school working with kids and seeing the basic function of how things go. Elaine Collins, the Newport City principal, is also on the steering committee of
That's
this
great.
group. And our school absolutely loves her. She has done a phenomenal
Right.
job with our school, and we look forward to keeping her for a very
Forever.
long time. Absolutely. So the bits and pieces of information that everybody has been able to bring to
Yeah.
the table has been very helpful in formatting our roadmap and getting it off to where it needs to be for an approval, so we can move forward with
Do you
whatever
have
changes.
a sort of date in mind? And obviously, it depends on the state and umpteen other things, but in your heads, when are you shooting for?
I think we are shooting for the end of 2018. I believe
Wow.
that is the time frame that we have to spend the amount of money that we were given that we were granted.
So that's another year and a half. Would you hope to
Yes.
have kids in the building before that?
I think that's what the plan is. I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no. I don't want to get the hope up too early that this will be off the ground
Yeah.
when we expect it to be, but I don't want to discourage people in thinking that it's not going to happen, because it is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And the timeline in which it takes for the approval of our roadmap and
Of course.
any changes that we might have to make, any further research we may have to do, it's absolutely a work in progress, and we can just pick apart one thing at a time and move forward with it.
Yeah. And the piece I hadn't heard before, and which I think is wonderful, is having community members, seniors, or whoever
Absolutely.
be involved.
Yes. Well, that's one thing that you don't see in other childcares, and that may be because of the guidelines, the restrictions, the regulations, all of the, I don't want to call it nonsense because it's in place for a reason, but some of it is foolish,
It
but
becomes a discouragement as opposed to an encouragement. And
Yes.
reality, it's a community issue. So
Yes.
why aren't we working as a community?
absolutely. So that is, our goal is to be able to incorporate that in there, and I'm hoping that we can pull it off without
Yeah.
having too many setbacks or having too many people coming down with a hammer telling us, you can't do that.
Right.
Because that's not what anybody wants to hear, but, being an age-friendly community, we would like to not just have that label, but we want people to visibly be able to see that this is why we are labeled an age-friendly community, because this is what we do.
Yeah. I presume the church is really encouraging the community aspect of this, because that's part of their mission, as I understand it.
Yes.
Will religion be an exclusion, or is that irrelevant?
I'm not sure under the regulations how religion can or cannot be incorporated into a classroom, a pre-K classroom or a pre-K setting.
The kids would not have to be congregation members' kids.
No,
Great.
no, absolutely not. No. And James Merriam is also a board member, and he hasn't been able to meet with us as regularly as we would have liked to have him, but he was working on another project down at UVM, and now that he's completed that task, he is looking forward to be more hands-on
great.
and on board with us here and working with us and getting this project up and off the ground. And his wife, Kendall,
Yeah.
phenomenal woman. She really is. She's been instrumental as well. She also works for the Farm to School
Right.
program, and people have seen her, I'm sure, down at the lunchbox, and maybe
Yeah.
don't know who she is. But we have an amazing team put together,
Yeah.
and we're just looking forward to keep on moving forward. We're constantly coming up with ideas, and people are approaching us with different ways that we can benefit the community, not with just a childcare. One of the other aspects that we were looking at also is having childcare spots available for people who are in need of recovery meetings
Right.
over at St. Mark's. So having spaces available for parents that need to go to NA or AA or any of the other.
There's a recovery center right across from the church.
Absolutely. So whether they need one-on-one services at the
Yeah.
recovery center, or if they're utilizing the recovery meetings over at the church, we want to make sure that we have space available for those parents so that their kids are in a safe place while they're doing that, and
Yeah.
they're getting the help that they need.
That's
Or in
another
the support.
phenomenal thing.
Yes.
Will I'm talking as if this is about to start tomorrow, but I might as well.
That's okay.
Will it be open from early in the morning until later in the day?
We had toyed with the idea of making a 24-hour facility.
That would be fabulous.
It would be fabulous. There is only one other 24-hour daycare here, and that is Cheyenne Hatton at
Yeah.
Northeast Kingdom Childcare Services. But she has children of her own, and I believe she's only Monday through Friday. I don't know if she's taking children on the weekend anymore, but
Right.
she has the most flexible day and evening schedule compared to the other facilities. And I feel like I don't tell her often enough how much I appreciate the fact that she is as flexible as she is. My schedule with work sometimes jumps and unexpectedly, and she, you know,
She can handle it.
I send her my schedule once a week, and on occasion things do change and I'm late or I have to leave early, but she's so good. She is so good and so understanding about it, and I never have any issues with her. I absolutely love her, and I can't say enough about her.
So will this centre be able to offer 24-hour?
I think once we've gotten a budget guideline written out, once we've figured out what all of our other costs are going to be, and what that cost alone would be, and how we would be able to maintain that, we would have a better idea. We may start just as a morning and afternoon daycare until we've gotten a feel for what's happening and how well it's working and how the financing part of it is rolling. Obviously, we don't want to bite off more than we can chew and then have it fail because we didn't plan accordingly. But the goal, I think, ultimately is to have a 24-hour daycare.
That's fabulous.
Community care center open, so that allows single parents, if they have to take a 3 to 11 job, they know that their child is going to be somewhere safe.
Yeah. One of the things that really slammed home the incredible shortage of childcare for me was working with somebody who nearly lost her kids because she worked in a job in healthcare. She was mandated to work overtime because the person for the next shift didn't show up. She had absolutely no choice about that, but she didn't have childcare to continue beyond that point. And somebody reported her to whatever the authority was. This was actually in New York. And she was taken to court. And it was just such a no-win situation for her. And for everybody else. I mean, the facility she was working in had no choice at that point. But she nearly lost her job over that, and her kids, which was just appalling. There's no justification for that.
No one should be put in a position like that. Absolutely not. And one of the other things, along with the PATH office and moms that have job requirements that they need to meet each month in order to keep their grant, if you're designated 40 hours a week and you have to miss a day because your child has a doctor's appointment, you're expected to make up the time that you miss. Now, if you're already scheduled 40 hours, where exactly is it that you're supposed to make it up? And if you can't make it up and you miss enough time for whatever reason, you get sanctioned. You know, so the system's not there.
The system works against, not in support of.
Absolutely.
That's so stupid.
It is. Families that try to acquire a car from the Good News Garage, that whole program, I actually went through that course that they offered to be able to save for a car and all that. I had a car. I couldn't afford to fix it. So I still qualified to be a part of the program, but under a different section of it. But I listened. You know, there were other parents there that were trying to get a car. You are, and I really don't want to discourage people from utilizing this program, because for some it may be easily acquired and others it's absolutely not. But you have to be able to successfully open a checking or a savings account, and depending on what the bank requires for a deposit to keep it open, you have to come up with that money. So if your Reach Up grant is $600 and your rent is $575, well, you can kiss that right out the window. You're expected to put $50 into that savings account monthly. You are expected exactly. You are expected to have a $300 deposit for your car if they find one that fits your needs. So again, if you get a $600 Reach Up grant and your rent is $575, you're hit right at the gate, and you can kiss a car goodbye. It's just not going to happen. And
is
that's
another
terrible.
program set up for failure.
Absolutely.
And that's cruel.
It is. The program is set up for failure, although there are those who have managed to successfully screw it over and milk it.
Good.
And
But that's not the model to aspire to, and that
No.
doesn't help your average person who desperately needs wheels. And reality, you can't work up here if you don't have wheels or access to wheels.
right, and I'm not incredibly familiar with the guidelines for RCT, but I have seen that the RCT travels to the BART clinic, which I assume is Medicaid covered because it's to the BART clinic. That's one thing. I've seen RCT like up at the grocery store, but I don't know if those people are having to pay to ride that bus, and chances are they are unemployed, early adult, and probably have no income or are on fixed income, or you're traveling to doctor's appointments.
Right.
And the taxi services around here, I don't know what their rates are, but
It's
if-
expensive.
But if you're on a fixed income or you're a young person,
Right.
you may not have the income to afford to pay a taxi driver to bring you back and forth to work.
Right.
So how do you utilize the bus system that is available? Or is it really available? It's just here, but not available to you.
Right.
It's, Burlington has public transit
Right.
every which way from Sunday.
And so does Montpelier.
And for $1, you can ride the bus all day. And,
Yeah.
most people can scrape $1's worth of change up to ride the
Right.
bus all day to go do what they need to do.
Right.
But around
And they're
here,
not
that-
having to invest money in a vehicle.
Right.
So that there's a little more flexibility.
Right, and even if you were able to acquire a vehicle, you're now then required to have insurance.
Right.
And then if your vehicle is too old, it's probably not gonna pass the inspection law, and then,
Now that that's changed
and then
as
you're
well.
back at square one, and you're hit right at the gate. Like, the economy here is really, really bad, really bad.
Right.
And new businesses come in, and sometimes I feel like maybe they haven't done their research thoroughly enough, and not to say that I discourage new businesses from coming here, but if you're coming here with $1 million business rolling around in your brain thinking you're gonna make some kind of big bucks,
Good luck.
yeah, you may as well
Right.
pack it up and head out now, because that's not gonna happen here. Vermont and Northeast Kingdom particularly could absolutely benefit from some expansion, but not, I don't think, it's hard to swallow too much of it at one time.
Right, and particularly as we're all just still, quote, recovering from the emperor's new clothes,
Yes.
from something that was promised and didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's that balance between reality, a realistic promise, and still setting the bar high enough so that we've got something to move towards.
Absolutely.
It's a challenge.
Well, small goals would be better
Right.
accomplished as opposed to one giant one, because at that point you're setting yourself up for failure,
Yeah,
because you're trying to take a leap.
right. Are you from here?
I am not. I'm
Where-
actually born and raised in Massachusetts, but I've been in Vermont since 1989. So
That's long term.
more than half my life, for sure. Both of my kids are Vermont born.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah. Yeah.
you can take me out of the city, but you can't take the city out of me.
It's okay.
Yes.
But it brings another perspective, and it brings some different energy, which is really important.
Absolutely.
We are just about out of time, and this has been fascinating. I love the energy you're bringing to this.
Thank
I
you.
love what this program has the potential to do, and that you guys are all doing it in a way that is attainable. It is realistic.
Yes.
You're making sure, even if it looks as though 2018 is a ways down the road, you're looking at making your goals measurable, and you
Yes.
can actually get there and keep the enthusiasm.
Yes.
And that's fantastic.
Yes. Well, trying to incorporate as many positive feeds into this project is a necessity, and
Right.
like I said, having smaller attainable goals will be much more beneficial when we get to the finish line.
So as this finish line gets closer, would you and anybody else from this group be willing to come back and talk to everybody again?
Absolutely. We'd be happy to
Fantastic.
deliver the news of how far we've come and what we have left to accomplish and when we can expect the grand opening of our community care center.
And when you have opportunities for other people to be involved.
Absolutely.
Because I think you could really pull others in here, which
Yeah.
would be great.
There will be opportunities for employment. There will be spaces available for childcare. And we're hoping to meet the needs of a lot of people in this area.
Great. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming in.